what were some like any epiphanies, any takeaways, any comments that you had? Even just like as you, because Dennis, I know yesterday you were saying how you used to work with a publisher, and I mean, every new author doesn't know what they don't know, and learn. All this is a learning process. So sh- everyone, yeah, Dennis, and then Lauren, feel free to share. What kind of breakthroughs are you having so far? Mhm, mhm. Okay. Yeah, yeah, great. Um, almost reached out to you yesterday because, of course, I had a brain blast because I was talking to someone a few weeks ago who, their whole business is helping people write self-published books, and he's somehow connected with Hudson Booksellers. Um, so I was like, "Oh, Lauren," I was thinking about you. Um, so clearly, I don't think you need to. I don't know all the requirements for Hudson Booksellers, but at the very least, it sounds like, if even if it is you need to be traditionally published, it would still be really great for you to have enough traction with book sales that Hudson would feel like it's a good business move to pick you up, right? So, um, yeah, 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 exactly. Yes, we love breaking molds here too. Yeah, and that's there was technically New York Times bestsellers. They're not supposed to ever be self-published books either, but Rich Dad Poor Dad was a self-published book. We'll see. We'll see. There's some other ones. It's an editorial list, so fingers crossed. Anyway, Dennis, go ahead. We got Kevin and Luca on too. Mhm. Mhm. Hmm. Mhm. Hmm. Okay. Mhm. 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 Mm. Hmm. Yeah. Um. Yeah, and I wonder if, and maybe creativity for you isn't like, it doesn't fall off the cliff, but it just makes me, even as a someone listening to you right here, Dennis, like, I'm curious why creativity is so why that is so important to you, why that's so meaningful to you. Um and when you can communicate to me why that is so meaningful to you in terms of your life. You were saying, you know, this is something that people lose. Um Is that something that you read about? Is that something that you experience? Is that something that, um, maybe I'll challenge you to kind of dig deeper into why that is so meaningful to you. Yeah, and maybe you'll find something in your past, possibly. I'm not saying it's a thing. Yeah, yeah, cool. We have Kevin, Luca, and we got Duchess on the line today. Um, Kevin, feel free to introduce yourself. Yeah, yeah. Mhm. Perfect. Sounds good. Thanks, Kevin. Yeah, Kevin is a talented book marketer as well. So, we got Carrie, we got Luca. Luca, I saw you were here yesterday. Feel free to come off mute if you wish. Can't hear you. And there's Carrie. Hey, Carrie, how are you? Doing good. Um, no, you're good. Okay. Why don't we get started? I know that Luca, I know you're having technical difficulties, but I want to make the most of everyone's time. So today is all about okay, so yesterday, as a quick recap, we went through we went through a lot. Maybe as I'm learning how to deliver this information, um, looking for ways to make this more digestible. But yesterday was really all about you, your magic, your story, why people are so magnetized to you. And the assignment yesterday was all about describing your story in a way that people are drawn to you. They're connected to you. They feel intimate with you. And that is your story, right? And sometimes, for like what Dennis was saying, we don't always fall off a cliff and then we realize things about our lives. But many of us do. And that's ultimately why we um begin a certain journey in our lives. We are looking for enlightenment, we begin looking for we go on a spiritual journey, we start to value creativity, whatever it is, and then we start to feel like there's a book inside of our chest, and then we have to extract it out of us, and then we start to write that book. And that's the book that everyone is so passionate about writing. All right. And I'm so passionate about this because when it comes to marketing books, um, when I listen to Tony Robbins or Amy Porterfield or Kathy Heller, all these big names, when they're on these podcasts and they're marketing their books, the reason I'm magnetized to them is because they have gotten so good at communicating their story. All right. So that is the skill that all of my clients practice is communicating their story so that ultimately that's not why I buy your book because I want your magic. I'm not buying the book because I want paper and, there's what 2 million books published every year. I'm buying your book because I want your magic. So, that being said, let's also talk about how to communicate your story in a way um, that people understand it. They understand it. They are influenced by it. Can you see the Canva? Okay. All right. Beautiful. Um, and they buy your book. So this is a combination of strategy, hard strategy, marketing strategy. Valerie yesterday was saying, I don't want the typical launch. I'm like turned off by marketing. Well, there's hard skills and there's soft skills. The hard skill of launching a book is going to be necessary. And then the um soft skill of communicating your story clearly, emotionally is the soft skill that people are going to be magnetized to. So, here it is the two things that you need to sell thousands of books per year. All right. And the stipulation is asterisk, 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 as really only applies to self-published books. Right. If you are going with a hybrid publisher, if you are going with a traditional publisher, I cannot help you. I do not know exactly how they do it because you the way that books are marketed that way, there's a whole other strategy. But either way, even if you are publishing with a hybrid publisher, Carrie, I know that you're working with a hybrid publisher. You still need to know how to market your book because they're not going to do it for you. But this particular strategy works for self-published. All right. Okay. So let's get started. So I am going to share with you guys later today this podcast episode between James Clear and Tim Ferriss. And this is James Clear breaking down the launch for Atomic Habits. How he launched his book, and that book now sells one book every 15 seconds, something crazy like that. Not guaranteeing that's going to happen for your book. But what I'm saying is that this template, so to speak, this launch template is what is used across pretty much every book launch I've studied. So I have this weird kink. I like studying book launches. And I have studied the launches of Amy Porterfield, Tony Robbins, James Clear. I'm just looking. I'm just like, what are they doing? What are the similarities? What are the patterns that they're all doing? And now not all of them are self-published. In fact, I think a lot of them are not self-published. But I love self-publishing because self-publishing gives you such beautiful creative control. You are Taylor Swift in a world of all the other music artists that have to rely on a business deal to make their dreams come true. But you get to have your cake and eat it too when you are a self-publisher. So I love self-publishing. And frankly, it's the thing that I know how to do. And so the pattern matching between all of these kinky book launches is podcasting and strategic podcasting. Okay. So maybe a lot of you might go with a podcast course. You might buy a podcast strategy or some kind of podcasting that teaches you how to get on a podcast or how to record a podcast. But tomorrow we're going to actually learn how to do it in a strategic way because here's a story, is that Robert Kiyosaki was not able to really sell that many copies of Rich Dad Poor Dad until he worked with Steve Harrison. And Steve Harrison created the podcast strategy to get him on highly targeted podcasts that helped his message go viral. And that's what we're here to do. We're helping your message go viral through strategic podcasting and through Amazon. All right. So we got two strategies, Amazon and podcasting. All right. Now, Amazon, when I say Amazon, some people are like, what do you mean Amazon ads? What does Amazon mean? What do you mean by Amazon? Right. There's Amazon in itself has these several features, just like YouTube. Like YouTube has like several features like, oh, they have like thumbnails, they have ads, they have an algorithm, they have I already said ads. They have comments, they have so many different kinds of features you can learn to optimize. And that is somewhat similar to Amazon. For many authors, they don't realize that Amazon has an algorithm just like YouTube, just like Instagram Reels, that is gameable, that is fun to game, that is leverageable. And there's a way to trigger it, just like how Mr. Beast triggers the YouTube algorithm and gets 100 million views in like one day or something crazy like that, right? So there's three main things we will be using with Amazon. One is the Amazon algorithm. I'm going to show you how to trigger the Amazon algorithm so that you can go further with less work. And I've personally seen how this works. It's pretty cool. Number two is optimizing your Amazon profile. Okay. So that's your book on Amazon. And some people call it an Amazon listing, which it technically is. But I have seen entrepreneurs, business owners who have a reputation at stake, who have invested thousands of dollars in a LinkedIn profile, an Instagram profile. But when I see their book on Amazon and it has 2 reviews, it looks kind of spammy. the title is in all caps. The reputational, the branding value that you are not you're not giving weight to with your Amazon book is a lost opportunity. So I want to share with you how you can actually make the most of your Amazon profile. It's got profile features just like your LinkedIn profile, just like your Instagram profile. And then finally, Amazon ads. Okay, so um, Amazon is the hungriest bookstore in the world, period. It is the biggest bookstore in the world, period. People are buying books left and right on Amazon every single day. Whereas if you're scrolling on Instagram, you're not really like buying a book on Instagram. You're not really buying a book on LinkedIn. Whereas when you're on Amazon, you're there to shop. You have the intention there you have your credit card information punched into Amazon. You're ready to shop. And you might even be buying multiple books in the same genre. Amazon is the place to be buying books. So yeah, Alyssa was on the call yesterday and she was saying that social media is a component of marketing, but she's also mentioned we were discussing marketing strategies as well. And she was saying that social media has also, maybe back in the day, maybe 10 years ago, social media was a place to sell books. It's not really anymore. I keep hearing anecdotally that it's so hard to sell books on social media. It's so difficult to sell books on social media. I can't do it. I can't do it. I don't recommend selling books on social media. But where I do recommend selling books is where people buy books, which is Amazon. Any questions or comments related to that? Go, Carrie. Yeah, how do we do that? Mhm, 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 mhm. Yeah, and that's a really great question. And so I could go forever and ever and ever on these topics. In and that's what I do. That's what I spend my life doing. So your question, Carrie, is a technical question that is very specific. And for the purposes of this workshop, we are not going specifically into the highly details of where to run ads, um, where to place them, how much to spend on ads. Those are more detailed questions that require that's later, um, further down the line. But that is a great question, and I'm glad that you're thinking along those lines. Any other questions that was a great question, Carrie. Um, okay. So I am now going to sell you on Amazon and podcasting because for a lot of people that I have I come across every single day, they come to me and they're saying, "I've been on social media and I've got a posting schedule 3 times a day. And I'm posting on LinkedIn and I have been on posting my book, posting my book, and I'm getting no sales." And I want to share with you that I get why you want that to work so bad. But I also want to share with you that I have never really seen social media work. Maybe there's like a breakout person who figures out social media. I think there's like a lot of fiction authors. Kevin, correct me if I'm wrong. I think there's a lot of fiction authors who do well with social media. Um, but with nonfiction readers are a different breed of reader, different breed of buyer than someone who's there to buy a book for the purposes of entertaining themselves. A nonfiction reader is there to solve a problem. So in many ways, they're looking for a shortcut. They're looking to learn. They want to spend money learning. They want to spend time learning. They want to invest in their own learning. And so that's why it's a different, we got to think in a different vein than just social media. Someone who's just scrolling and skimming and then saying, "Ooh, a link to Amazon, that sounds cool, but I'm not going to buy a book." Okay. So this is going to come in the form of a story. All right. And particularly the experience that I've had with selling 10,000 books in year one, and then it went on to sell 15,000 copies um, over time. So I've had 4 failed books in the past, and they were all self-published books. And this is before I knew anything about marketing books beforehand. Yesterday, we talked about how marketing comes as step 0, basically, where the first thing we do is not make a post on social media. The first thing we do is not make an announcement to our fans and our followers. I mean, you can, but the first thing in book marketing and book creation is outlining your market. This is how Jack Canfield and Chicken Soup for the Soul created their books. And this is how they became the first billion-dollar book brand. It was because they knew that the Chicken Soup for the Dog Lover's Soul was going to be a completely different book than Chicken Soup for the Military Wife's Soul. All right. Now, when I was along the way, I'm learning that my first book that I ever published, it was my own personal book. It was called Networking for Introverts. And it was actually like because I am an introvert. I have extroverted qualities. People are like, are you sure you're an introvert? Yes, I'm an introvert. But the idea was that I had no reviews on that book. I didn't know how to do market research. I didn't know how to combine strategically what the market needed and my own story. All right. But I also knew that over time, as I was getting more reviews, and these reviews were coming in, it got easier and easier to sell my book. All right. And then as I was getting close to around 75 reviews, it started getting exponentially easier. I also was noticing how it was easy to become a market leader once I hit the 3-figure review mark. That means at least 100 reviews or more. That was when people started clicking add to cart without a second thought. That was when people were saying, come on my podcast. That was when people were saying, come to Hawaii. All right. So when I could get a ton of at least 100 reviews, that was when it was no longer an issue to sell my book. I also learned about, go ahead, Carrie. Okay, we'll go over that. I promise. I also learned about the Amazon algorithm, in that there was a way to trigger the Amazon algorithm. So it was reviews, and it was also sales. And you can get sales through also downloads, all right? So if you can front load, if you can get your fans to read your book beforehand, and then on day 1 say, hey, my book is live, and they go then download your book and leave you a review, Amazon eats that up. Amazon's like, whoa, this book is doing really well. This book is doing really well. This book is doing really well. This book, and you can, before I knew it, I was stacking reviews and sales on top of each other in the first 30 days. That is how you trigger the Amazon algorithm. And before I knew it, I had random people downloading my book from the internet that I had no idea who these people were, and my book was soaring to the top of the Amazon charts. And that's the thing with pretty much anything. I think it became a positive flywheel. There were these editors that started reaching out to me. Hey, I saw your book online. Hey, I saw that your book was. I see in the chat we have 12 things in the chat. There were. Amazon is a public platform, just like LinkedIn, just like Instagram. People are seeing books soar to the top of the charts, and they're saying, I want to reach out to this author. I want to reach out to this person. Who is this person that's publishing this book? And they'll ask you for partnerships and brand deals. And you're creating this positive flywheel, this virtuous cycle, upward, 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 upward. All right. But it first had to start with triggering the Amazon algorithm. All right. So let's talk about the Amazon algorithm. Let's look at the chat really quick. Um, did you look at Hormozis? No, Kevin, I did not look at Hormozis. What about KDP Select? Katerina, what do you mean by what about KDP Select? Ads themselves are a whole job, and yes, ads are a whole job. Um, Book talk is effective for young adult and adult fiction, but that's when someone else talks about your book as opposed to the author selling their book. That is correct. Okay, we got great stuff in the chat. From my experience, the best way to get reviews is to give reviews. Okay, so Alyssa says the best way to get reviews is to give reviews. Fair enough. But I'm going to show you even a better way. All right. This is the screenshot from my Amazon launch for that one book that has sold over $120,000. This it was a spike. Oh, sorry. This is units sold. Okay, so on the y-axis we have units downloaded. Um, and this spike right here. As you can see, there was like nothing happening. This came from one of my first 4 failed books, and then nothing happened with that. But throughout here, I was creating my book and then preparing for the launch. All right. So all throughout here, I was sending my book out to 800 people, strangers on the internet. All right. Ebook, correct. That's correct. Now, here's the thing, like with one of my clients, we are looking for a way to send physical copies out too. You can have your physical book printed out in advance if you wish. And that's how I think James Clear did it and that's how traditional publishers do it. The early release book is called a galley copy, and the idea is to send that out to influencers and to send it out to, famous people to get their review and everything. But you don't have to do that. You can send a PDF, and that's what I did. PDF. And what's lovely about PDFs is that it's infinitely multipliable. You can send out as many as you want. There's no physical restraints to it. So I'm sending out these ebooks and I'm telling them, hey, my book is coming out on this day. So I'll let you know when my book is coming out. And I'll message you when it's time from when my book is live. On that day, I tell everyone that I've sent the book to, great, you have a PDF. Now that my book is live, go ahead and download the book because in the first 5 days, it's free. Download the book for free and leave a review. And you can leave a review on Amazon without having to have bought the book. Okay. Download the book and leave a review. And oh, baby, Amazon ate it up. I told 500 people to leave a review or to download it and leave a review. So like 500 people downloaded it, but about 100 people left a review. And that's about the ratio. There's a barrier to entry when it comes to reviews. All right. But that is the stats. I had about 500 people download the book and I had 100 people leave a review. And Amazon then sent my book to hot new releases. And then more than 2,000 people that I had no idea who they are download the book. And it went to the top of hot new releases, #1 Amazon new release, #1 Amazon bestseller. Amazon becomes the wind in your sails. All right. And that's what I call Amazon virality. And this is how, Mr. Beast is the master of the YouTube algorithm. I'm teaching you how to become a master at the Amazon algorithm. Okay. So any questions about the Amazon algorithm? Sure. Can you specify more about what you mean? Oh, okay. 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 So that is different from this. Okay. Per Yeah, that is different from this. Um, this is about long-term flywheel sales of your book, because you can get a number 1 Amazon bestseller tag in, like, a day and become an Amazon number 1 Amazon bestseller for life. Does that really mean anything? I mean, maybe it does mean something to you. So, actually, there's a lot of businesses out there, their whole shtick is to get you number 1 Amazon bestseller, and they'll charge you $20,000 for it. But I'm here to share with you that this is how you get long-term flywheel sales to build your business. Alyssa, go ahead. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Mhm. Yeah. Mhm. Right. Mhm. Fair enough. Yeah. Yeah. Right. So, that is an amazing question, and there's 2 different ways that you can approach setting out your book early. The first scenario is you have a business and you have a sizable audience, meaning you have thousands of people in your email list or Instagram account or whichever that are related to the topic of your book who would be delighted to have a copy of your book. That would be the first place I would send those that book to. But however, not all of us have that, right? So for you, Alyssa, like this is similar to how this situation was right here. There's also situations where, you're writing a book that is in this maybe a new brand that you're launching, you don't have the audience yet. And that comes from finding people who are interested in this topic. And that usually I found these people through Facebook groups. Um, I have also seen people do subreddits. I have also seen people go into forums because the internet is so good at, collectivizing people with similar interests. Go into those groups. So this is what I did. I went into Facebook groups that were homesteading groups, rainwater harvesting groups, country living groups, and I interacted there, I engaged there, I got to know the people there, and then I made a post about 30 days out and said, "Hey, I'm an author, and I have a free book to share. My book is going live in about 30 days." People love authors. People are inspired by authors. People are magnetized to authors. You'll be surprised how much lube you have, um, just by being an author. All right. People are like, oh my gosh, an author, you'll make that post, and then people are going to say, like, boom, 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 boom. I would love a copy of your book. I would love a copy of your book. I would love a copy of your book. That is how I found my people for rainwater harvesting. Okay. And I could see for you, Alyssa, like, I mean, is this, like, related to Latin stories? Okay. Yeah. Okay, 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 okay. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Um, yeah. My first thought would be to go into, I don't know, there's another way you could do it, like, you said you're in Philly, right? Like, there's gotta be, Latin Philly Facebook groups or clubs or something like that. And, if you get to find those groups that would make sense to that you would be a celebrity in those groups, um, that would really appreciate your book. Okay. Okay. Mm, mm, education. Mhm. Mm, yeah, yeah, uh-huh, yeah, yes. Um, I can s Of course, as I say this, I'm gonna write a note to myself. I use a template when I send out copies of my book that explains the process and what I can expect in exchange for sharing this early book, and it basically says, like, "This book is going out at this time, and I would really appreciate a review when it goes out." Um, Let me write that down. Um And I do understand, and there will be people who will never quite understand, so it does turn into a bit of a volume game, um, who so that is why I've always encouraged my clients to focus on volume. So send out between, like, 500 to 1,000 of these ebooks, because there are gonna be people who will tell you, "I don't even know why you're asking me for a review, I don't even know who you are," even though you interacted with them on Facebook. There will be people like that. And you just be like, "No problem, be on your merry way, and I'll just go on to the next person." Okay. Yeah. Mhm, 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 mm, mm, mm. Okay, okay, okay. Yeah, we can connect offline to go deeper into that. Okay, so we've talked about the Amazon algorithm. Let's talk about the second strategy, podcast touring. Why podcast touring? All right. And okay, so there's a lot of publishing brands on Substack, online. They all have their own way of doing things. And it's not my job to convince you necessarily one is better than the other than this is what I believe. Because I've seen it work. I've seen it work for my clients. Some people will say, wow, podcast touring is so much work, therefore it's not worth it. Podcast touring is a whole other beast. Don't worry about it. I'd rather use social media. Okay, that's totally fine. I personally have seen people struggle with social media for years and never sell books. I've also seen people have amazing launches with podcast touring and launch speaking careers. My client Beth, she's the one who went on that nationwide book and speaking tour because of her appearances on these podcasts, which then gave her a speaking opportunity at this conference, which then launched. She just got back from a paid brand deal with an RV company to go around the Western United States. That's the level we're playing at. We don't want you to shill one book at a time with social media. Okay, so this is the level that we're playing at. All right. So a lot of people with Amazon, people are like, okay, well then how do I stand out on Amazon if there's so many other books like mine on Amazon? And that's a fair question. Especially because hopefully you've done your market research. You have clarity and can communicate clearly with precision how your book does stand out on Amazon compared to all the other books that are like yours. But also, we also want to get out into the world and find the people who don't necessarily know about you, who aren't necessarily shopping on Amazon for books. We want to get in front of them. All right. So this is how Jack Canfield, Jessica Zweig, you see their pictures right here. This is how Robert Kiyosaki started building momentum for Rich Dad Poor Dad. This is how Jack Canfield started building momentum for Chicken Soup for the Soul. Was that here's the anecdote was that Jack Canfield and Mark Victor Hansen, they could not figure out a way to sell books. They even started putting books in a book backpack, and they went to this, I think it was like a book conference, and I think that's how they eventually met up with Steve Harrison. And Steve Harrison said, "We need you to get onto podcasts. Find the specific podcast where there are thousands of listeners listening, hungry for your topic, listening to it every single day, and get in front of them and start speaking to them, because they're going to be attracted to your magic." All right? And that is how you build momentum um through the medium of spoken word. Okay? Now, I know a lot of you, like Dennis, I know you're a public speaker. This is also a beautiful way for us to to create a platform to be public speaking. When people are speakers bureaus, they're not just looking for that you have a book, because a lot of speakers bureaus are looking to see if you have a book to select you. But they're also looking to see if you can articulate clearly. When you speak, does your episode or does your topic have a clear way of communicating? Am I following clearly? And that podcast episode is a beautiful way to direct them to, yes, absolutely, it can speak clearly. Look at this. And then after you've listened, here's the link in the show notes to go purchase my book, right? So, um, two options for podcasting. And this is what I teach to all my clients. This is what my clients are doing. This is what they're doing. Is that, oh wait, I'm sorry. It says two options for podcasting. What it really means is that this is a podcasting strategy. I was editing these slides at like 8 a.m. Um, what I want you to do is, in that period before your book goes live. So remember how we were saying we were preparing for the Amazon algorithm. We're sending out books. We are sending out books. We're asking them to read the book and leave a review when your book goes live. But also, we want to be podcasting. We want to strategically record 25 to 50 podcasts before your book comes out. Before. Why before? Oh, because we want you to release all of your podcasts within launch week. Because then it's going to sound like every single person in the entire world is talking about Dr. Lauren McLean, or everyone is talking about Dennis, or everyone's talking about Carrie. Who is this person? It sounds like everyone's in an echo chamber and talking about you. And it creates word of mouth. And as Alyssa said yesterday, word of mouth is one of the most powerful, if not the most powerful way to sell books. Lauren. Right. So that's a good point. I'm glad that you brought that up. So, in fact, you do have control. And in fact, be on the lookout for podcasts that can collaborate with you to release the podcast during your launch week. More often than not, podcast hosts, they are interviewing authors, and they actually are used to working with authors that have a launch period. This is how that's how we arranged his podcast tour, was that I think it was like 85% of his podcast hosts could release their podcast during his launch week. The other ones didn't. And we planned for that. We created a pre-sale link so that when it did go out, we could direct them to the pre-sale link. But like 85% of them did go out during his launch week. That was a good question. Mhm. Mm. Yeah. So that's why I am very adamant about the strategy piece because yeah, and I get it. Like, because a lot of podcast hosts are, they're doing their own thing and they release podcasts on their agenda and their schedule, what serves them, and that's totally fine. Um, but if you start the conversation, if you pitch with the intention, hey, I would love to collaborate. This is going to be a great episode for you and your audience. And do you also release podcasts in relation to authors launch weeks? A lot of them say yes. And my client, we have like a special template for that for their pitch. This is all part of the song and dance. This is how, yeah, all of your favorite nonfiction authors expect to go on podcasts. Kevin says, have you ever done giveaways with the podcasts that people go on? Um, so, um, by giveaways, I'm not 100% sure what you mean. But what we do is that we offer a bonus in exchange for someone purchasing the book. People aren't generally incentivized to purchase a book straight from the link unless they hear, oh, Amy Porterfield has this 5-minute, $5,000 course that I can do and it's free. Oh, goody. I can't wait to get this book and then also get her bonus. So all of my clients, we develop a bonus strategy with your podcasting strategy so that people are incentivized to purchase books. Um, there's this can be done in many ways. Like with Amy, we developed a multi-tier um, bonus strategy. So if you purchase one book, you get this bonus. If you buy 10 books, you get this bonus and this bonus. If you buy 100 books, you get this bonus, and this bonus. So you can incentivize people to purchase exactly how many books you want them to purchase using bonuses. Carrie, go ahead. Well, it can be anything, but my suggestion is outcome oriented, juicy, exclusive, easy to distribute, easy to replicate, doesn't require too much of your time. Um, James Clear said, if you purchase, one of his bonuses was if you purchase 100 books, I'll do a free keynote. And then everyone decided, oh, that's a great deal. And then he had to fly out to multiple locations across the world and do keynotes. But he sold a ton of books, but he also had to do a ton of keynotes. So, how do you want to spend your time? How can you offer value to the world? That is up to you. And your creativity is the limit. Raffle competition. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. And Kevin, I have not ever really done a raffle or competition. A short evergreen course sounds the easiest. Absolutely. Usually the authors that I work with already have courses that they've created, or they're using something that that they use typically, and they repurpose it for the bonus. Like Amy has a Notion dashboard that she can then just replicate for all the people who purchase her book, right? And what this does is that it not only shares your message, but this also sells books. People are incentivized to click add to cart, not just click on your Amazon and then just click away, but they're incentivized to click add to cart. All right. And that's that's really the whole point of this. I don't want these books to be in cardboard boxes. I want these books to be out in the world. All right. This is how we get books out in the world. Okay. Questions. This is a great conversation. Okay. So, go ahead, Carrie. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, sure. Yeah, you can sell memberships. Yep, you can do that. Amy is doing you can get membership to her mastermind group that meets quarterly for 1 year. Um, so things like that. All right. Okay. So this is how your story and your podcast tour go hand in hand. I mentioned sending you guys the podcast episode for James Clear, but I also want to send you another podcast episode. And her name is Ann Byler. She is the founder of Auntie Anne's Pretzels. And her story goes like this. She founded Auntie Anne's Pretzels because I'm going to start at the beginning. When she grew up in an Amish community and she started getting sexually abused by her pastor for years. And she, without any kind of emotional tools or knowing what to say, felt like she was trapped for 7 years. Um, that is when, after a while, she finally told her husband, thinking, once I tell my husband, this is it, this is the end, this is the end of our marriage, this is the end of my life, like what's going to happen at the end? All right. That is what you would consider the low point of her story. Um, and in that podcast episode, she does a brilliant job of taking you with her on that emotional journey of where I hung on to every word she was saying. Once she told her husband said, Anne, we are going to go to marriage counseling. And once they figured out marriage counseling, they realized that everyone in this Amish community needed marriage counseling because no one in this Amish community had the emotional tools that they did. And so she started Auntie Anne's Pretzels to fund marriage counseling for every single person in that Amish community. And that is how Auntie Anne started and how it eventually blew up. Then, after that episode, she then shares how she has books, how she has speaking, she shares a website. It is the perfect segue to then sharing what you have to offer. Because people are not just buying your book, they're buying your magic. They're buying why you're doing it, why it's meaningful to you. Like Lauren, I even have a friend right now who just graduated her PhD. She feels so lost. And if she heard your story about how you figured out, I mean, you're figuring out, maybe you don't necessarily feel like you have every single piece of the pie together, but you have something that she wishes that she had. If she heard your story, she would be attracted to your magic. Oh, by the way, there's a book on how to do it. Great. I can't wait to get her book. All right. So this is how we link your book and your podcast tour all together to formulate the brand that is you. Okay. Questions. Are the bonuses distributed through another form or do people send Amazon purchase info? It's a good question, Kevin. We'll discuss that later. Um, yeah, I'll answer that in the comments. But does everyone see how this is all coming together? How it's you. You're the magic. And we're just putting strategy behind it to make it real. Okay. Okay. So that's all I got for you guys today. All right. Any comments, questions, concerns? You're like, Renee, this is the worst thing I've ever heard. Yes. So I will be sending you the slides. Okay. And I'll also be sending you a worksheet, the worksheet that I use for all of my clients. Um, and this is how so yesterday we did an exercise to describe your story, why what you do is so meaningful to you. Now we're going to turn it into your episode, your podcast episode. And this is how you will show up on podcasts. You can do this on Substack Lives. You can do this on podcasts. How you speak about you and your story that leads to book sales. Okay. So that's the assignment for today. I will be sending that out. Podcast worksheet. And that is all I got for you guys today. Okay. So I'll send it out. Honestly, great conversations. I feel like I learned so much from you guys too. Any other comments? Thanks, Carrie. Yeah. Um, it's a good question. I have not seen similar stats to YouTube as I've seen with podcasting because the stat with podcasting is that 67% of people who have heard about a book on a podcast have purchased one. I don't know about the stat for YouTube. Um, yeah. But podcasts are often co-released on YouTube as well. So if it is also co-released on because the thing with podcasting is that people are listening because they're multitasking. They're not sitting in a chair. They're there to do this and drive. They love to learn, they love to spend time learning, and they love to spend money learning. That's the podcast listening demographic. That's their behavior. That's why it's so like powerful. Rather than like sitting in a chair in YouTube and listen, like watching and listening, people are generally multitasking when it comes to podcasting. Right. So if that is the demographic you're targeting, then it sound to me that makes sense. It sounds like the intersection overlaps. There is an intersection. That was a great question. Um, okay, so we are finished for today. I'll send the follow-ups for today for the assignments. Great job, everyone. If you have already introduced yourself, feel free to pop off. Luca and Kate, if you have some time, I would love to be introduced to you and what you guys are doing. We haven't spoken yet, but thanks to everyone. Bye. Thank you. Uh, um, Luca, Kate. You guys don't have to. I was just hoping to get introduced to you if that's something you guys want to do. Mhm. You can come off mute if you wish. Okay. Maybe not, but hmm. Let's see. Um, okay. Luca and Kate, this recording will be sent out to everyone, and you'll also get the assignments for today. And if you need me, I'm available on Substack. You can also respond to the emails that I send out, and we'll see you soon. Hopefully, see you tomorrow. All right. Talk soon. Bye. All right, Greg, Ashley, thanks so much. We'll talk soon.